But today we're going to kind of put everything we've been learning. We're going to kind of put this all together. And we kind of started it a few weeks ago when we did the Debt Snowball, when I introduced a particular family. And I took it from baby step 1 to baby step 4, right? So we're going to finish that today. So we're going to do a quick review of those first 4. Not going into heavy deal, but just do a high level quick review. And we're going to spend more time in the other baby steps, all right? So if I could get someone, I don't want to much storm women. I don't get a volunteer. I don't get one of the students to pray. I don't get a student to pray. Let me see who's like looking away. So you're not looking away. You're ready. You're ready. I can tell you're ready. Would you like to pray first? I won't put you on the spot, but if you'd like to, you can pray.
Dear Heavenly Father, we give you thanks. We give you thanks for this amazing day that you have given us. We want to give you thanks for your word, Lord. Thank you for always speaking to our hearts, and thank you for moving us to do greater things and to step out in faith and from our comfort zone. I ask you, Lord, that in this moment you will continue to speak to us and to teach us about how to handle our finances, Lord. And we pray for each and every one of us here present. And it's in your name that we pray, and we give you thanks for what you're doing. Amen.
Amen. Thank you for allowing me to put you in the spot and delivering real well. Thank you for that. All right, so we're gonna go over the baby steps again. So we're gonna start off. Remember, just a quick review. Baby step 1. Whoa. Guess I didn't catch it on there. All right, sorry about that. All right, so baby step 1 is basically starting off that first $1,000 emergency fund. So that's not the emergency fund, that's that quick emergency fund we're gonna get going. And then after that, we're gonna pay off all our debt using the debt snowball. So generally when we talk pay off our debt, we pay off all our debt with the exception of the mortgage. Third thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take our emergency, that $1,000 emergency fund, and we're gonna fully fund our emergency fund to a 3 to 6 month emergency fund. Next step we're going to do is going to be investing 15% of our income, right, into investing 50% of our income. And Charlie went over that last week, right? Baby step 5. Please go and read this in the material, because I'm not going to spend time in this, and I know we didn't spend a whole lot of time, but it's a lot of good information for baby step 5 as far as saving for college, right? An example that we're doing today, they won't be doing that neither. So make sure you read it, because there's a lot of good information in there. Baby step 6, paying off your home. And then baby step 7, we're going to talk about building wealth and giving. So we're going to concentrate on baby step 7 towards the latter part, but we're going to build up to there, all right? And hopefully we could get you excited and motivated on the benefits of becoming debt-free, and then the benefits of using your income and your grown income to become a millionaire, all right? And I know when I mentioned I was going to show you how y'all could be a millionaire, that some of y'all was looking at me like, it's not, I don't see it, it's not possible. And I'm going to show you here just math and just doing some steps, how it's very practical, all right? But it's just, you're going to have to do the steps, all right? So let's get back with Mr. and Mrs. Johnson. All right, so I introduced you to them before, but let's just go over it again. We have Mr. and Mrs. Johnson. They're married with 2 kids. They both are 45 years old. Annual income is $115,000. They purchased a car 5 years ago. They have a balance of $296,000. They have 2 car loans with that's not the balance, with a $35,000 balance. And they have credit cards, balances of $31.75, $27.30, $43.35, and $12.25. And right now in their bank, they don't really have money. So they have money, but it's to pay their bills right now, right? So as far as their savings, they don't have anything, right? So they started off just like you in January, and they started their net worth. So at that point, their net worth was like $256,000. Most of us, unless we have a home, right, and we have established equity because the property went up, a lot of us won't have that net worth. And if you don't have the net worth right now, that's fine. All actuality, most of us, if we have a car loan and we don't have any investments, we actually have a negative net worth, right? And that's fine. Know where you at, and then we're gonna move forward. All right. The next thing we went on was we did about to say the B word. Forgive me. We did a spending plan, right? So the spending plan, we figured out what our money that was coming in versus what was going out, right? And we created a spending plan, right? And a spending plan is a forecast, right? Just like the weather, is the forecast always correct? No, right? It's off sometimes. So if your forecast is off, is it okay? It's okay, right? But what we're gonna do with our forecast is take the data and forecast again. Hopefully our forecasts get better, right? But the first month budget, they realized after the income was going out, they forecast that they have a net income of $263. So after they did that, they went sort of looking at their expenses. I did want to plug this in real quick. When we do our budget and we're looking at expenses, remember we gave you this tool here to kind of look at the different percentages your certain expenses should be at, right? So we do our budget. So we just don't it's not the George Foreman, you just don't do a budget and forget about it. We're gonna see what we're actually spending on the daily. We're gonna track our spending, right? And we're gonna put our spending based on those categories, whether it is whatever expenses for, we're gonna put it with the appropriate expense. And we categorize so we can know where we spend, how much we spend in each category. So at the end of the month, we're gonna compare our forecast to our actual, right? When we compare our forecast to our actual, we're gonna see a variance. Again, we expect to see a variance, right? Especially in the first few months. We expect to see a variance. What we do with that variance is what's gonna be crucial. That variance is gonna tell us, just like any data, right? We're gonna take data, just like if we was operating a business, I'm sorry, not if we were operating, just like we operate in our home business, because we are CEOs, we are CFOs, and we are COOs. I made a mistake and said we was managers. We're not managers in our homes. We are the chief executive officers, right? We're given that position, that God put us in that position, right? So we take our information, we look at it, and we're gonna make adjustments. If we're off in certain areas, we're gonna see why. We're gonna look at it and see why am I off? Was my budget? Was my spending what I allowed in that forecast? Was it unrealistic, right? And I shot real low, dreaming, or was my behavior off, right? What did I go out and spend more unnecessary than I should have, right? And then you have to look at yourself. You don't have to look at any instructor. Look at yourself. You're gonna see I did this, and you're gonna make your corrections, right? And then you're gonna use that to set your spending plan for the next month, right? So you're gonna do a new spending plan the next month, right? So remember when we talk about this person here in a scenario that they was able to save $1,000 in the first month, right? To the emergency fund in the very first month because they had a garage sale. They had a garage sale, and because the other residual income they had was there, so they was able to save $1,000 right away. And they went to pay off their debts. Their total debt was like $45,000. So we saw that over here on the calculator, right? So they listed all their debt, They figured their debt was $45,000. Those payments were $1,300. Their residual income was that $263. So the monthly payments that they used to apply the debt snowball was $1,573. They took the concept of paying off the snowball, which is paying off the lowest balance first, and then applying when they pay off a certain balance, whatever payment was making on that debt that's no longer there, applying that payment to the next smallest bill, and so on. So what they're applying to each bill snowballs. It gets bigger as they get that momentum. That's why it's called a snowball, right? So we remember that when they did this, they was able to pay off their debt in 33 months, right? So that's less than 3 years, 2 years, 9 months. So in that period of time, they become debt-free in a short period of time. Remember that we did this based off of their income of getting paid, because one was weekly paid, right? Got paid weekly. One got paid bi-weekly, right? So keep in mind that means weekly is only 4 checks, right? Bi-weekly means there's 2 checks. In a year, the person got paid bi-weekly got 2 more checks. The person got paid weekly got 4 more checks. That sounds like a whole month of income, right? At the end of the year. So if they utilize that, right? Here, that 33 months is actually gonna be a lot sooner, right? We also talked about what if they took a gazelle-like attitude. So what if they cut on areas on their budget because some of the percentages was off? What if they cut some of that stuff to brought it down within the means that it should be? What if they decided to take advantage of some of the other ways to make income that we talked about? Gazelle-like, again, that will bring that up a little quicker, right? So just doing this, thank you. So just doing it, yes, sir.
So I had a question about that chart, the last time you showed it, cause I understand the concept, but the numbers they're not mathing for me. So,
Okay.
For example, the first one where it says Chase, and then it says the original balance, and then, months to pay off. How are they paying that off in 4 months? Are they using the 263 initial snowball amount and using that complete amount to pay off the rest of the balance?
Yes, so let me show you this right here. I hit that page. Unhide, and I hit that one. I didn't want to do that. So let me go back to just the payment schedule. All right. So here's the Chase. The payment was like $115, right? But they have that 263. So the Debt Snowball, we're gonna pay off. We're gonna make the minimum payments on everything else, and we're gonna put our residual income plus that payment we had to pay for that to pay that off.
So the 115 plus the 263.
Yes, sir. So that's gonna be like 318.
So then the following, like the next debt, it would be the minimum payment plus whatever they're saving that month towards the, so then that 263 would go up essentially.
Correct. So that this there's the 115, the 261 here, and now their residual income is like 463.
Gotcha.
Plus that 145 here.
So then that total amount will go towards the next card.
Yes, sir.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then it keeps building.
Thank you.
No problem. Thank you for asking, because that means someone else probably had the same question. All right. So thank you. Let me go back here. So let's go back to this scenario here. So after they did the Debt Snowball, we talked about they started building their emergency fund, not the $1,000, but the fully funded emergency fund. So it took them like a year to do that. But keep in mind that their residual income went from 263. Now their residual income now is 1573. It won't take them that long to save up that emergency fund, now that their residual income is a lot higher, right? So they can make that emergency fund within 12 months, additional 12 months. So this person here, basically within 3 years and 3 months, went from having $45,000 in debt to having no debt other than the mortgage, and also have their fully funded, fund, emergency fund, which is like about 20,000, right? And so that's where they at in 3 years, 3 months, right? So this is not in the book, but milestones, we have to give us, I think we need to give ourselves milestones to keep us, motivated to stay, to move on. If you don't need it, you don't need it, but I like rewards. So their milestone was to go on a family, vacation, right? And since they have residual income of $1,573, they could take 2 months of that and fund a family vacation, right? They don't have to dip into their credit cards like we normally would do to go on that family vacation, right? So now we at where we are today, all right? Or where they at right now in baby step 4, all right? But before I go on baby step 4, which is talking about, investing, right? I want to talk about their mortgage, right? Talk about mortgage interest rate, and explain the difference between interest and mortgage. So this one is doing a loan for 180 months. Their loan was for, because the book talks about doing a 15-year mortgage, right? So if you can do a 15-year mortgage, this is what you want to shoot for. Now I'm going to explain to you why. This loan at $296,000 on 15, at a 15-year was 180 month. This interest rate is a 3.5% interest rate. I'm sorry, 2.75 interest rate. This usually, in 2018, interest rates was lower, right? And it was like about 3.5 or 30, and usually for a 15-year, there's usually a lesser interest rate. So it was like 2.75 back then. So divide that by 12, this is what the interest is each month. All right, that's how they do it. So based off of that, this will be my payment. So the way a mortgage works, simple interest, right? You make your payments, if it's a fixed loan, your payments is fixed, your payments do not change. What changes the direction of where your payments are going, right? So the first month of their loan, out of that $2,000 here to 2008, the interest was $678. The difference of that would be what's going to be applied towards principal, right? So at the end of the first month, this was their balance, $294. Second month, they start off with $294 payment. Now the interest here is based off of this balance. That interest rate that I show you based off of this balance. So this is the interest. This went to principal, right? I'm not gonna do this 180 times, but what we can see is that the payment's staying the same, the interest is going down. What's being a percent of interest going down? What's going towards principal is going up. That means they are paying it off a little, it's get paid off quicker that way, right? At the end of 180 months, right, of making that $208,000, the loan was for $296,000, but they paid back $361,000. Out of that $361,000, we know the $296,000 was the loan amount, but $65,000 went to interest.
Wow.
This is on a 2.75% rate, right? $65,000 in interest. Not that great, right? But wait, for 30 years, there's more. So 30 years, same thing, but instead of the interest rate being like again 2.75, it's like 3.5% rate, right? That means every month this is what I'm paying at 2.92. Same thing, balance 296. This is my payment. This based off that interest rate for that month will be the interest. So the difference of that between the payment is what's going to principal. Second month, I start off with where I ended off at. Same payment, fixed rate, payment doesn't change. Change the interest amount changed here. So the interest went a little down because the balance was lower. So the same interest, so my interest amount is lower. So the difference in principal went up because the interest went down. In 360 months, what was the interest we paid last time?
65,000.
How much is it gonna be now? Okay. All right, so 478 total payments, $182,000 in interest, right? paid off the same amount, but it went up almost 3 times, right? Not double, took me double time to pay it, I would like to pay maybe double the amount of interest, no. Interest, when it's working against you, it really works against you. Time is not on your side when you pay off debt. Credit card debt, mortgage, anything, time is not on your side, all right?
And I'm sorry, this is just paying the minimum,
The regular payment.
the
yes, ma'am.
regular payment, okay.
Yes, ma'am, yes, ma'am. All right, so I wanted to show you the contrast between a 180-month loan and 360-month loan. Now we're gonna get back to the Johnsons. Next, I see where you're going, is where I need to go. Yes, sir.
So if the house cost me $296,000
Mhm.
at 30 years, I'm paying almost $500,000 for the house
Yes.
with the interest.
Yes,
Is that what you're saying?
yes, sir. And that's at 2.75. I'm glad you asked me that question.
2.7.
Because the rates
Mine is
today,
at 4%.
rates today ain't the same, right?
Ours is mine had 3.
So,
So there's like,
Mine is at 4%.
so what are the rates today on a 30-year mortgage?
Today,
I haven't seen that.
6.5, 7.
Yeah.
28.
Okay, so let's play with 7%. So I'm gonna change the 3.5 divided by 12 and change that to 7
Yeah, I thought mine was 2.
divided by 12. Alright, payout went up from 13 to 1900. But again, I'm about to say it's scary. Houses are more expensive. The cost of homes are more expensive now.
Yeah, and $296,000 is not really.
Yeah. So this person,
Let's
this
pretend.
person's house, when we looked at it, said the house value now is 540,000.
Yeah.
That's what it'll be.
Yeah.
All right, but let's look at that $296,000. Same, just to keep numbers the same. Now I pay 708 with that 7.5% rate. I'm paying 412.
Whoa.
So interest and time, I increased the interest rate from 3.5 that was being offered back in 2018 when they purchased the home to like if I'm buying a house now and I got the same price home or I downgraded, right, because the houses went up. But if I borrow that same amount of money, I'm gonna pay back $708,000 for $296,000 loan. I'm paying back $412 in interest,
And that's 30 years.
30 years. Yeah,
Wow.
that's good. Yeah, because the interest jumped up. All right. So let's check out the Snowball. Let's get back to Mr. and Mrs. Johnson. So again, they bought the house in December of 2018. Right, so not to bore you, but they bought in December. January, they don't make a payment. February, they don't start making their first payment. You own a mortgage, you always skip a month, right? But they all charge, you are paying interest. But first payment's is you skip a month. So February, they started. So they was just going with them. They was just doing the minimum, doing the thing, right? Up into January 24th, where we said they had a balance of 265. And then they started saying, okay, we started class. I saved $1,000 the first month, so they saved $1,000 the first month, right? And then, because they had it, they started to save $1,000. They started to do the debt snowball. So this same what we talked about. So they did the debt snowball. So we said it was like in 33 months later, they paid off their debt, and then they started an emergency fund, right? So 12 months later, they did their emergency. They paid off their emergency fund. Right, they did a milestone, right, for 2 months, and now I'm at step 4 and step 6, and we're doing this simultaneously, step 4 and step 6. 5 is out, they're 45 years old, they didn't have a lot of retirement money saved, so strategically, it's not for them to save for their children's college. They're gonna have to teach their children, they're gonna read how to take care of your college in a book, and they're gonna teach their kids that, and they're gonna teach their kids. I'm gonna show you something for someone who's 25 years old, what they can do, how that goes. So you're gonna set them up that way, right? But this couple they can't. So what they're gonna do is, so let's go back to this scenario, the example here. So step 4. So we realized their residual income is about $1,574 a month. If I annualize it, right, times 12, my annual residual income is $18,886. But remember, that's based on a person getting paid weekly 4 times, and a person getting bi-weekly twice. So at the end of the year, they're gonna have both of them are gonna have a whole month of extra income. So they're gonna have basic, this is the net after the tithe, so this is the $6,000 extra. So they're gonna have an adjusted, a total residual for the year of 24, which is gonna be an average of 2,081. So the reason why I converted this way is I wanted to make sure when I put it on our on a chart to pay off the house, even though it's not gonna be the same 2,000, even though it's not gonna be the same amount every month, but it's gonna be months where we have that extra, and it's still gonna be applied throughout the year. Yes, ma'am.
So when you get the number for your particular income, right? If you're getting paid bi-weekly, are you going by what you're getting paid that the company says, or what you actually getting paid after you're paying all those fees?
After my you mean my
your
gross,
taxes, your
my net,
FEMA,
yeah,
your everything.
based on my net, and based on my net income after my tithe.
Okay.
So that's what I'm working with
So
here.
you take everything out, okay.
So this person here, on an average, his income would be his residual income, after everything's taken care of, and this also after the bills, all the other bills he had, except for this point, except for the mortgage, right? So his residual income is 2,081. So the book tells him to invest 15% of our income, which will be like 17,250 for the year, which will be about 1,437 a month, right? So I have 2,081 in monthly residual as an average. So on that average, I'm gonna be able to put like $644 towards my mortgage payment, right? So now I'm gonna work on investing and mortgage simultaneously, right?
With the 644.
With the 2,081, right? Because this is the average residual income that they have.
So you're gonna invest 15.
So
Okay.
so I have 15%, because that's that 1,400, and then the mortgage is gonna get that 644.
And you would put that 644 towards the principal?
Yes, ma'am.
So you still add your minimum.
So
Monthly payment.
yeah, and you're gonna, so basically, if I can shoot up here real quick. So the 644 plus this will be my new payment. 1973, which we're gonna see down here. So again, step 4. This is what my balance at this time will be on my mortgage if I've just been making a regular payment. So you see 1329, now you see 1973. This would have been my balance at month 109. This is my current balance. Now, because I have no debt and I'm investing 15%, I'm gonna put like $644 into my monthly payment. Now, it may be, some months may be lesser, because I put this as a monthly, like spread it up. So some months it may be like $100, $200, but then some months you're gonna put like $3,000, $4,000, right? But at the end of the year, it should average up to 1973. So what's gonna happen is that as we apply more money towards our mortgage, right? Instead of paying it off in 360 months, he's gonna end up paying this mortgage off in 257 months. So he paid it off, or they paid off in 103 months less. Just like over 8 years they saved, right? So at this point, so we are in 2024, and they're 45. This is 16 years later, say about 51, right?
60.
I'm sorry, 61, right? They're like 60, depending on when their birthday is, right? 60, 61, so, I did 62, all right. So, now, this is where the fun happens. Now, I got this a little blowed up a little bit more, so if they're investing that 1,475, which equals $8,625 every 6 months, and let me explain what I did first here. back up a little bit. So what they did was they invested it in a mutual fund, right? And some mutual fund, they pay compounded interest monthly, some does it semi-annually, some does it quarterly, some does it annually, right? So I did one that was semi-annually, so it's twice a year. So that means the money they send in them, it's gonna be annuity, it's gonna be like every 6 months that they making a payment, that's what's gonna be compounded. So that's why I put 86 here, all right? So they're 62, around 62, so by the time the end of that, they become 62. At the end of that year, they would make 25 turns, that's every 6 months, so that's 12 and a half years, right? So 12 and a half years, 25 months. Now, I'm looking at a 14% earnings on annuity, right? So if it's every 6 months, then that's half. So if they're growing their money, if they put them in a mutual fund that's growing 14% a year, after 12 and a half years, this is what they would have based off of that $1,400 they paying in about 12 years when they started. So around there, by the time they're 62, right? This is what they have. Now, they retire, they decide they want to retire at 65, and they already paid off the mortgage, but they want to retire at 65. This is what they could have in 3 more years. And now, but now because their house is paid off, they're not investing $1,400 anymore. They're investing that $1,400 of those investing plus that mortgage payment, which is almost $2,000, right? So they're investing like about $3,400 a month. After 6 months, so investing $3,400 a month, after 3 more years, this is what they're gonna have. Because they have no debt, right? They could be more aggressive with their savings, right? Now, after 3 years, this is what they have. So if they have this amount of money 3 years, what can they do, right? I'm sorry, I did change the interest rate, because if they're 62, I didn't leave it at that 14% earnings. I dropped it down to an 8% earnings, something a little bit more conservative, right? Because they plan on retiring. So on the long-term rates, your earnings goes up, all right? It goes down, goes up, but in the long term, it's gonna go up. But when you're getting close to retirement, you don't want to take the risk of having something high, because if it comes down when you need the money, you don't have it. If you're younger, if it goes down, you can wait it out. It's gonna go back up. So you're gonna change your strategy as you get older. So that's why I put 8% here. So that's why it's $826. So if they get to $826,000, right? Now what they're gonna do? They're gonna take this money and put it in like a money market account or CD account and make 5% on their money. They'll be able to have an annual income of $41,000, right? What happens to this $826,000? If they live it on $41,000 a year, what's happening to that $826,000? Huh? It's not going anywhere, right? They living off the earning, but they're not taking away from that, right? So this is something. This is what we talk about being self-insured. If something happens to you, this is what you can leave for your family. This is your legacy, right? So based off of that annual income, this is their monthly expense. Monthly earnings. Now think about it. If you have no debt, no mortgage, you have bills, you have light, you have water, you have utilities, you got food, you got entertainment. Is this something you could use to live off of? Respectfully, with dignity, how the book would say, with dignity. And keep in mind, you still have Social Security, hopefully, right?
Yeah.
So this plus Social Security, you can live with dignity, and you can still have a principal balance that's not going anywhere. You just live off the earnings, right? Now, what happens if they say, I'm not gonna retire in 65, I'm gonna go to 70, and they do the same thing. They for 5 more, so it's an additional 5 years, they invest in not $1,400, but like about $3,400 a month. This is what they're gonna end up having, 1.4, about 1.4 million dollars, which is saying we're at 5% interest. This is what their annual income This is what they could live off of that, plus Social Security, right? So they could live pretty comfortable with that, right? And they could live, again, being self-insured, leaving something behind, for their, as an inheritance, all right? So, start at 45, by the time they're 70, this is what they could have. Now, I'm 51, I'm lying, I'm 51, I'll be 52 this year. But, I'm not here. And I understand if a lot of us not here, and I know when I spoke about this last time, a lot of us like, I can't envision myself being there, but this is real, you can apply this, right? Alright, so this could work for you. Now, what happened if you're starting at imagine if you're 25, your kids, if you wanna share this with your kids, and time is on your side. Remember, when you have a debt, time is not on your side, but when you investing, time is on your side. So a 25-year-old, let's say they invest $250.
And maybe 25, they don't have the amount of debt that this couple already had it. So they can even go faster because of it, right?
Yeah. But let's think about how simple this is. This is $1,500 over 6 months, so basically that's $250 a month, right? So they 25, by the time they're 65, and they're getting 14% interest after 40 years at 14%. This is the future value of that $250 a month compounded.
How realistic is it to find a 14% return on your investment?
Mutual funds, I
That's
think.
7%.
Yeah, I think, yeah, right,
Well,
I think that's.
It's 14, you said it's 14 for the
For,
year.
for the year, yeah, I think this is right, because I went back and I looked at what the mutual funds were paying, over like 5-year period. I did this like a year ago. Dave Ramsey said 12%, when I looked at it 2 years ago, it was like about 14%.
Okay,
Yeah.
so, but
That's mutual funds.
if you're putting it in a mutual fund, is that guaranteed that for the next
No.
30 years,
No.
you're gonna remain with that 14%?
No, it's not guaranteed, so, but over time,
Yeah.
you will be at 14%. You're gonna be times where you're gonna be at 20%, there's gonna be times you're gonna be losing money. But over time, and this is long term, you're gonna make money. So like I said, so as a younger person, they're gonna see their money go up and go down. They're gonna see that it's gonna go down, they're gonna get scary, but it's gonna bounce back up. When you get close to like 60, 62, you're gonna wanna change your investment from a 14%, that's a little bit more, it has a little bit more risk included in that mutual fund, and guessing it has more stability stuff, less risk, and drop it down. Not gonna make as much earnings, but you're gonna reduce your risk of the loss.
Gotcha.
And that's what you wanna do, because when you're about to retire, you don't wanna say, okay, if it goes down, I'm gonna wait it out. You need to live off that money, you're retiring. All right, so while we're still working, they can live off their income, and they can wait for that to bounce back. No question, yes, sir.
So let's say, just to ease you, let's say he's half wrong. Let's say he's half wrong.
Right.
We're still at 2 million. If you start at what age? 25. But let's say that we are, we're not, how old did you say? Not 25, but the other example, the one,
70 and
Um,
62.
49.
the one,
By when we
That
started,
one.
by
Yeah,
the time you started investing, they started investing by like around 50.
yeah, 50.
49,
Yeah,
yeah,
50. We're at 50. We're still, where are we at if we start at 50?
And let's say this person invests $1,000 a month, which would be $6,000 every 6 months. And 50, and let's say you go to 15 more years, and let's say you're doing something at 8%. So this is, if you start at 50 and you do $1,000 a month, 30
Yeah.
years, 7.5%.
7.5%, that's what, 15?
Oh, I'm sorry, no, sorry, 7%.
Yeah, so that's still 500,000 where we are today. Like, I'm not there yet, right? So, even if we start early, we don't start early, but we start where we are today. And
It's
we
better.
invest for, how long is that?
15 years.
For 15 years. Think about where you were 15 years ago. You could be right there today, but we're not. So if we're not there today, look at 15 years from now, you may be there.
And that's
So,
another,
and
that's an additional 5 years, so instead of 65, go to 70, this is where you're at 70.
So that's 20 years.
Yes,
No, that's 20
this would be
now.
20 years,
Yeah,
so
that's
50
20
plus
a
20
million.
years, this is
$1,000
$70.
a month. You can be a millionaire in 20 years, and let's say that the interest is not 14%, let's say it's 10% or 8%. We're still much better than we are today. So let's do it.
And if we have anyone who's over 50, we say start, because you're gonna end up with more than you would have had if you never started.
Yeah,
that's right.
So just get started. Anything else? Any other comments?
Any questions? Does this seem like this could be something that could be applied?
I just, I guess it's, I don't wanna be negative, because, but when I look at things, I guess, what's the worst case scenario that could happen, other
That you-
than
That you use everything, that you.
that you put your money in mutual funds? What is the worst case scenario
That
that
you
could
lose
happen?
everything.
But what
What's
would it
the-
take to do, to lose everything?
Again, managing risk, what's the probability that you'll lose everything?
How many times have we lost everything in the stock market? Ever? Never.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that's
That's
what I
all,
wanted
yeah.
to know, like, in the stock market, has that happened?
Yeah, normally,
No.
when you diversify like that, you normally have like a 30%, like if it goes down 30%, that's a huge deal. But typically, that doesn't happen.
I just wanted to know if that ever happened. I mean, that's awesome.
Closing prayer?
That's where it needs to be.
It's